G'day. I think we'd all agree that we live in a 24/7 world nowadays. Many shops and amenities are open 24 hours a day, pretty much every day of the week. In my own town, in fact, which is not exactly large, a 24-hour gym has recently opened, and there's a 24-hour Tesco. These places need people to work in them. Of course, there are also many jobs that have always required around-the-clock presence, such as the police, fire services and hospitals, as well as places like the electricity generating plants. As the world becomes a more global place and business needs to be conducted in all places at all times, we see more and more jobs that require flexibility in terms of working hours. The name shift work is given to those jobs that require their employees to work at different times throughout the whole day. Although I've never worked shifts, I do know a few people who have. A typical shift might be the late shift from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m, or the early shift from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m, or the dreaded night shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Many people who work in manufacturing industries might alternate their shifts from early to late to nights over a 2-month period or so. They do enjoy some extra time off in lieu of the extra strain these shifts put on the body and the mind. So, for example, after 2 weeks of early shift and 2 weeks of lates and 2 weeks of nights, the employee might get 5 days off, and then the cycle starts again. Alternatively, we see some people who do permanent late shift or night shift. Their whole working life spent working at night when others are tucked up in bed, safely asleep. Think about the maintenance engineers on the London Underground, the train system. The only time they have available to work on the train lines is when the trains are not running, which is between about midnight and 5 a.m. Also the cleaners on the Underground. I suppose we've all stayed up all night at some point in our lives, for whatever reason, travel, a big night out with friends perhaps. And although the extra time awake leaves us very tired, there's no lasting problem. One good sleep and we're back to normal again. But what about shift workers? How does shift work affect the body and the mind? That's what I'm going to tell you about now, and the research might put you off any job that requires working at night. Researchers in Canada studied some police officers as they started a week of night shifts. In the evenings, those of us who work or study at normal times release a hormone called melatonin. That's spelt MELATONIN. Because the police officers were not on permanent night shift, most found the change from day to nights quite difficult. Their melatonin was still being released in the evening, and as a result, they felt tired and had slower reaction times than those whose body clocks had adapted to the night shift. Those who had adapted released the melatonin during the day, which in turn meant that they slept better during the day when they were not working. In a larger study in the US and Canada, 40% of police officers who worked different shift patterns suffered some kind of sleep disorder. This research suggests, perhaps, that changing shift patterns from days to nights or early shift to late shift to night shift will have a negative impact on how well you sleep and how well you perform while working the night shift. That might suggest in turn that if one were to work permanent night shift, that the body would adapt, and this hormone, the melatonin, would be released after the night shift to allow good quality sleep during the day. And that might be the case, but we also need to consider other factors. Firstly, let's consider how the lifestyles of night shift workers are affected. Fairly obviously, it's more difficult to maintain a social life with friends and family if you work at night, and this may have a psychological effect on people. Secondly, night shift workers have much more difficulty eating a healthy diet. Fruits and salad, the healthy choice foods, are not easy to get at night. On the other hand, it is pretty easy to find a burger, a pizza, or a fried chicken late at night. All of this junk food certainly is not good for your health. Besides the lack of healthy diet, shift workers have also been found to suffer from higher levels of stress. Airline pilots were studied by Bostock and Steptoe in 2012, and they were found to have higher levels of the stress hormone cortisol when they were working an early shift. High levels of cortisol is often associated with higher blood pressure and increased risk of heart problems in the long term. Other studies have shown a link between shift working and a worsening regulation of glucose in the body, which could be linked to type 2 diabetes. All studies conclude that shift workers need to pay increased attention to their lifestyle habits. A healthy diet, plenty of exercise, alcohol in moderation, and not smoking. If they don't, they may turn out to be like a friend of mine called Dave. Dave has worked shifts since he was about 25. He drinks his fair share of beer. He smoked until about 6 years ago, and he rarely does any exercise. Now he is like a walking encyclopedia of illness and suffering. He visits the doctor twice a month, takes a multitude of pills and tablets. So don't be like Dave, and think carefully about your future profession. Do you really want to be working shifts? Thank you very much.